After 22 hours of travelling, we arrive in early afternoon in Yangon, formerly Rangoon and formerly the capital, but it continues to be the biggest and most interesting city in the country now calling itself Myanmar. A short break for lunch and we're off to see the Sridagon Pagoda, one of the greatest sights of Myanmar. The pagoda is a Buddhist monument. Between 80 and 90% of the population is Buddhist. Originally built back in the mists of time, probably between the 6th and 10th century, much rebuilt and added to over the years. Here's how it looked in 1825. She asked to be called Kin Kin. Each corner of the octagonal pagoda is labelled with a day of the week. There are 2 Wednesdays, morning and afternoon. You worship the Buddha in the corner for the day of your birth. It's now the next morning, a 7 a.m. alarm call and soon off for a full day's sightseeing in Yangon. Street markets are normally down at street level. It's mainly women who put Thanaka paste on their face, partly cosmetic, partly a sunblock, made from the bark of a tree. Some traders are squeezed into the middle of the street. Totally destroyed by a bomb in 1943, British, I regret to say, rebuilt after the war. By feeding the terrapins in this pagoda's pool, you acquire merit for a future life. Not so much a pagoda as a very large corrugated iron shed. Alarm call at 4 a.m. this morning. Leave the Yangon hotel at 4:45 for a 6 a.m. flight to Bagan. The flight takes a bit over an hour and we emerge from Bagan airport at around 7:30. This is long before the Bagan hotel will have our rooms available, so we launch straight into sightseeing. Nats are local deities, worshipped before the arrival of Buddhism, which has had to allow them to coexist. Nats can be troublesome and need to be propitiated with offerings of bananas, coconut and so on. In the plain around Bagan, there's an astonishing array of pagodas and temples dating from the 11th to 13th century, more than 2,000 of them surviving out of around 10,000 built. To get a view, we clamber up a pagoda and look around. Time for definitions. A pagoda, also called a stupa, is a dome-like building, usually with some sort of spire, built to contain holy relics. It's not a building you walk inside, it's solid. A temple, on the other hand, is built for worshipping in, and you do go inside it. Well, that's the theory, even if it doesn't quite work out in practice. at 4:30, off to experience a local tea shop. It's rather like a transport cafe. Then we climb up another pagoda. The plan is to watch the sunset, but the sun fails to oblige until we're back inside the bus. Today, a horse and cart drive winding amongst the pagodas and temples for a ground level view. One of us sits up beside the driver, the other is in the cart behind. The Damayani is the largest Bagan temple, and we stop to see inside it. Then through the archway and back to our horse and cart. Then, at around 4:30, off for a sunset cruise on the nearby Irrawaddy River, which used to be the Irrawaddy River. And yes, this time the sun does set. Today, another early start for the 30-minute flight, not via these sightseeing balloons, from Bagan to Mandalay. Straight into our day's work in or near Mandalay, which starts with the Mahamuni temple. At the temple, some very young novice monks to be initiated. They'll spend perhaps a week in the monastery, then back home. Monks, it's worth mentioning, can and do stop or restart being monks at any time. Nuns, on the other hand, are nuns for life. Next, we're off to see some traditional crafts. Actually, we saw this on the following day, but it belongs here with the other Mandalay crafts. The demand for gold leaf must be immense, given the number of pagodas, Buddhas, and even these ornaments that require it. You need to be very young for this job. Made of teak, it was once part of a royal palace and covered in gold leaf. called the world's largest book because each of the 729 pagodas contains a large inscribed marble tablet. Together, these record all the main Buddhist scriptures. The marble block it's made from is said to have taken 10,000 men 13 days to transport here from the Irrawaddy River. We round the day off with dinner at a Mandalay restaurant. Today, a 12-mile drive southwest from Mandalay over the Irrawaddy River takes us to Zagain, as I think it's pronounced. When ground, the bark on these logs makes the Thanaka paste which she has on her face. No, I haven't been able to work this out. With great precision and in absolute silence, the nuns queue up for their lunch. Making the best of our rather unexciting presence. Now crossing the Irrawaddy on the return journey to Mandalay. The lake is crossed by the Ubine Bridge, 3/4 of a mile long, built of teak. Today we're off to see Maymyo up in the hills 42 miles east from Mandalay. Due to its cool climate, it became in colonial times the summer capital of Burma. The flowers are destined to be offerings at Buddhist temples. Maymyo had been named after a Colonel May. After independence, the name was changed to Pianoluin. Understandably, perhaps, this didn't really catch on, and the name seems to have reverted to Maymyo. Also at the gardens, there are endangered animals to see, and birds and orchids too. Next, we climb onto or get into a horse-drawn carriage for the journey into the town centre. On the way, we look out for villas built for the British when Maymyo was the summer capital of Burma. The British habitually built clock towers in their colonies. On the way back from Maymyo, we came across this astonishing procession, winding its way along one side of a dual carriageway and back along the other. According to our guide, it would be celebrating the induction of a new batch of novice monks. It was certainly the highlight of the day. Next come the families of the novice monks, the people who are paying for this procession. And here in blue are the novice monks. Back in our Mandalay hotel, we'd opted for the buffet dinner in the garden with a dance and puppet show. Perhaps neither the puppet show nor the dancing was anything very memorable. But they were in competition with a little girl who you can just about see in the shadows, copying what the dancers do. She's a local child who the dancers tolerate, which is very kind of them, because the little girl stole the show. Our next destination is in the lake. The day starts with a half-hour flight from Mandalay to Heiho. Then an hour and a half by bus, winding through the hills, from Heiho to Nyan Shui. Just before reaching Nyan Shui, a stop at this monastery. The many niches with Buddhas mark donations to the monastery, with the name of each donor below. Here we get on a boat, 4 or 5 of us to each boat. As you can see from the map, there's a channel, a blue line, leading from Nyan Shui to Inler Lake. The plan for the day aims south to see life on the lake, a remarkable pagoda and monastery, no escaping those, then back to the north of the lake to Inler Resort, which is our hotel. Watch the fishermen to see how they row with their feet and manage their conical nets. There's lots of floating vegetation on the lake. You'll see later how, after being agglomerated into floating islands, it's then cultivated to grow crops. The pagoda houses 5 small sacred images of the Buddha. Over the centuries, so much gold leaf has been applied to them that they now look like golden puffballs. On these floating islands of vegetation, crops are grown. This used to be known as the Jumping Cat Monastery. Their cats were trained to jump through hoops to keep the tourists amused. But cat jumping has been banned by the new abbot, seen here. The cats are still around, but their jumping days are over. The plan for today: start with the village of Indane, marked with a red diamond, which is up a long channel from the south of Inle Lake. Handing over presents for the school children, which we'd bought at the market here. We then reach a long walkway with columns and shops which leads uphill to the 3 Indane pagodas. Good views from up here in all directions. The pagodas are currently being restored, perhaps over-restored. We next aim for Nampan.
See that structure? That's a exactly.
Today we're off to see the Kaku Pagodas, the first part of our trip by boat to Nyan Shui, then on the bus to Kaku, a total journey of 3.5 hours and another 3.5 hours back. This is the capital of the Shan state, and the part of the state where the Pao people live. As at all pagodas and temples, you have to take off your shoes and socks. I'd guess that the blue sign says, "Leave them here," the red sign, "But not here." The Kaku pagodas, until very recently, have been little known or visited. There are more than 2,000 of them, neatly squashed into an area of about 1 square kilometre. Most are in a good state of repair and not over-restored. There's a wide range in age. Some pagodas date from the 11th to the 13th centuries, with a few much earlier, but most date from the 16th to the 18th centuries. So was Kaku worth the 7 hours of travel? Perhaps the most extraordinary day of our 11 in Myanmar, so yes, I think it was. The temperature on In the Lake in the early mornings was always chilly. Today it was 7 degrees. We too take to the air and fly from Heiho Airport back to Yangon. The old centre of Yangon has a remarkable collection of colonial-era buildings, some of them now being cared for, but others in urgent need of care.